Amen. Amen. Okay, we're going to start learning now for a while the dinim what's called Muktzeh and Shabbos. Now, a lot of people think, they say, oh, you can't turn on a light Shabbos because it's Muktzeh. I mean, Muktzeh has nothing to do with any of the other 39 forbidden activities that are called halachos and Shabbos. The word Muktzeh is, number one, according to most opinions, is rabbinic. There are opinions that hold is biblical, but most opinions say it's rabbinic. And the word Muktzeh itself means set apart, separated. Something which is out of the intention of a person of using it. Now, there's three reasons the Alter Rebbe brings down why the concept of Muktzeh began. But to preface it, the Gemara says there was Ezra and Nehemiah at the beginning of the building of the second Bais Hamikdash. So in the days of Nehemiah, which was Ezra's time also, but it was Nehemiah's Gzeira, people were extremely lax in the laws of Shabbos. So to strengthen the observance of Shabbos, Nehemiah instituted a concept called Muktzeh. In the time of Nehemiah, when he forbade Muktzeh, he said like this: you are not allowed to touch anything, nothing, except plates, forks, and food. That's it. Everything else you're not allowed to touch in Shabbos. Or not touch, move. Muktzeh does not mean touching, Muktzeh means moving. Afterwards, the Gemara says when people started keeping Shabbos better, so then they relaxed a lot of the initial decrees that the Chachamim said about Muktzeh. Now, why did the Chachamim forbid Muktzeh? So there's three reasons the Alter Rebbe brings down. Number one, the Alter Rebbe says that if the Chachamim say you shouldn't walk on Shabbos like you do during the week, you shouldn't talk on Shabbos like you talk during the week, you should conduct yourself in a holier atmosphere of Shabbos, so the Chachamim felt that people should be separated from doing just mundane things on Shabbos by just moving things. Secondly, which is part of this reason also, you might come to do a malacha. You might forget and do something which is forbidden on Shabbos. Another reason why Muktzeh is forbidden on Shabbos, because you might come to carry. If you're able to move everything and just, then you'll forget it Shabbos. You just pick yourself like this. If this I can move, this I can't move. So you remember that there's a sanctity of Shabbos and you won't just come and move things. The third reason for Muktzeh, he said, because there are people that don't work a whole week. So how do they celebrate Shabbos? For them, what Shabbos is different than a whole week? They don't work a whole week anyway. This is pre-cell phones, pre-electricity, make it a regular day. So the Chachamim said, we're going to give you a spirit of Shabbos. How are we going to give you a spirit of Shabbos? Certain things you're not allowed to move on Shabbos to remind you that there's a day called Shabbos. Okay? Now, like we said, when Nehemiah made the initial decree of Muktzeh, so, number one, he didn't, food items, tableware, svarim for that matter, they were never included in the Gzeira of Muktzeh. First of all, people have to learn, people have to eat. I mean, you can't forbid all those things. Now, food which is fit for people to eat is automatically not Muktzeh. Animal food we'll see better. Even food that you really, let's say, can't open on Shabbos. It's in a sealed bag, it's in a can. So even though you're not going to be able to open it on Shabbos, but technically that food is edible. But food which is not edible for human consumption, on Shabbos is Muktzeh. To give you a simple example, and here's the difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov. Shabbos, you're not allowed to cook. So if somebody has raw chicken, raw meat, that you can't eat raw, and on Shabbos you're not allowed to cook, so then that food is completely muktzeh. You can't move it for any reason. And as we learn more and more the din of muktzeh, there's an issue which is a very practical case of frozen food, which is not edible for people. You're not planning to give it to your dog, because it's too expensive. So therefore, it's real muktzeh. Now, what does that mean in a practical sense? Let's say for dessert, you want to serve ice cream. The ice cream's in the freezer. So the ice cream's in the back of the freezer. And now in the front of the freezer, you have raw chicken and raw meat. Or unedible food. I'll give you an example. Raw peas, raw beans, raw potatoes, they're not edible for people. People don't eat raw potatoes. So raw potato on Shabbos would be, as we'll learn, completely muktzeh. So now you have a dilemma. You have in the back of the freezer is where you have the ice cream. Okay, you want to get to the ice cream. The problem is it's plated in the front with frozen stuff, which is muktzeh because it's not edible. So there's a whole issue about moving that stuff to get to the ice cream in the back. You're basically not allowed to move it the normal way. You have to do, as we'll learn. I'm just bringing out that it could be a very practical case of raw meat and raw fish being muktzeh, because if they're in your freezer and you have to get to something behind it, you're going to have a problem. Or in the refrigerator for that matter. It's going to be a problem. Okay. Dishes, okay, tablecloths, all that. Okay. Now, in muktzeh, there's a lot of different levels of muktzeh. Some muktzeh item, we said again, muktzeh does not mean forbidden to touch. If something is muktzeh, like for instance money, halachically is really muktzeh on Shabbos, I could touch it because I'm not moving it. But I can't move it in the normal way of moving. That means if somebody left money on the dining room table, and I need to, it's Shabbos now, and I need to set the table for Shabbos, you cannot pick up the $10 bill and take it away.
Does that apply to a check or a credit card?
Well, again, we're starting. This whole book is on Muktzeh, and it's a smaller one in Muktzeh. There are bigger, fatter books on Muktzeh. It's going to take time to cover it. I'm trying to work in a systematic fashion. Okay? So let's discuss thing. Now, there's something that's called Keli Shemalachtai Leheter. A vessel whose primary usage of that vessel is something permissible. There's thousands of examples. See the other one. 1 second. He goes into already Kelish Mach to listen. See what if he has cases. I'm just trying to think. On the other book, he has cases, a million cases. Okay, a game that you're allowed to play on Shabbos. A game that you're allowed to play on Shabbos is not muktzeh. If it's a game you're not allowed to play on Shabbos, it is muktzeh. But if it's a game that you can play on Shabbos, it's not a muktzeh. The stender is not muktzeh. These the tables are not muktzeh. Chairs are not muktzeh. Those are all things that are primary use is something permissible. So all those things are not considered forbidden. Nevertheless, okay, it says in halacha, and the Aruch HaShulchan asks a very simple question about that, but in Shulchan Aruch it says that even a keli shemalachti leheter, even a keli, I'm not talking about svarim, I'm not talking about food, I'm not talking about tableware. That was never included in the muktzeh forbidden, in the Gzeira muktzeh. But everything else was part of the original muktzeh decree. So that is, the Chum said, okay, that you can move now. But the only question is, can I move it for absolutely no reason? Just for no reason at all. So the Aruch HaShulchan asks, what is that supposed to mean? You're moving it, obviously, for a reason. So he says, your people should be careful about subconsciously just, playing with things on the table that are not muktzeh, but stam, you should be...
not playing with it?
Huh? So again, that's what everybody asks the question. If you're playing with it, there's a usage for it. You're not stop moving it. But they're right. What it means aimlessly tipping over an empty chair. Okay, I'll give you an example. A chair is not muktzeh. What happens if somebody wants to move it, turn over a chair just for no reason? I mean, like, you should be careful not to do it unless there's a reason why you want to move it.
The reason you're turning it over for no reason is itself a reason.
That's what they ask, and it's very difficult to understand what it means. But halacha says for absolutely no reason you shouldn't move it. Whatever. The next type of muktzeh is very practical, very, very practical in realistic life. And let's start it. There's something called keli shemalachta le'isr, a vessel whose primary usage is for something forbidden on Shabbos. For instance, a pen is made to write. Writing is forbidden on Shabbos. Therefore, there are hundreds of examples of these things, by the way. Therefore, a pen is what's called keli shemalachta le'isr. Its primary usage is for something forbidden. Yeah, you can use it as a bookmark. Yeah, you can clean your ears with it. But the primary usage of a pen is to write. Therefore, it's muktzeh. But because it's still a keli, it's allowed to be moved for certain conditions. What's called tzerech gufay, that means you want to use it to do something permissible with it. For instance, I need a bookmark, yeah? So I want to take this pen, and now it's a bookmark, okay? A bookmark is allowed. It's not forbidden to use a bookmark on Shabbos. So if I want to move the pen because I want to use it for something permissible, and we'll learn later if there's nothing else permissible to use for it, then you would be allowed to do it. If you need the place, for instance, somebody left a pen on the dining room table, they need the place, they have to set the table. Somebody left it on the bed, they want to go to sleep. So now they need the place where the pen is. So then you could pick it up and put it away. So you could do two things with the keli shemalachta le'isr. You can use it if for permissible usage, and you're allowed to move it if you need the place where it's on. To give you an example of this, I want to crack open a coconut. I want to crack open a coconut. You're allowed to open a coconut on Shabbos. I want to use a hammer and a screwdriver, or a hammer and a chisel. Now, what is a hammer? The primary usage of a hammer is for construction, which is forbidden on Shabbos. Even knocking a nail is forbidden on Shabbos. So what's the general purpose of a hammer? The purpose of a hammer is for construction. Therefore, what is a hammer? Keli shemalachta le'isr. Its primary usage is for something forbidden. But if I want to use the hammer for something permissible, for instance, I want to crack open a coconut, so that's a permissible usage. I'm allowed to do it. If somebody left the hammer on the table, they left it in a bed, whatever, they left it in a place where you need it, you're allowed to pick it up and take it away. And put it where it belongs. But you don't have to drop it as soon as it's off the table. So that's, and I'll bring the other book, has much more. Now, where can you not move? Okay, it's Muktzeh, so where can you not move it? So the answer is like this. If this pen is in the backyard, I don't want it to get stolen. I don't want it to get ruined in the rain. Okay? Then I'm not allowed to pick up the pen and bring it into the house. You're allowed to kick it. You're allowed to kick it because Muktzeh, as we will learn, you can only you kick it or do it the not normal way. Huh? So it says in halacha here you could cheat. Let's say I have a pen in the backyard. Yeah. A book is not Muktzeh b'chal.
No, but you use the pen.
Certain books are Muktzeh, by the way. A book you're not allowed to read on Shabbos is Muktzeh. We'll learn that. There's a lot of books and newspapers that's forbidden to read on Shabbos, or certain parts of a newspaper are forbidden to read on Shabbos. If you're not allowed to read it on Shabbos, then it's Muktzeh.
If the pen is outside, you take the book.
Oh, so what? So you could cheat. You could say, you know what? I need the pen inside as a bookmark. Even though you really, if the pen wouldn't be outside, you wouldn't do it. Here the Chacham said you could cheat. You could create a reason why you want to move it.
Would a phone be Keilah Shemach?
It depends what type of phone. A phone, this one is worse. Because there's another concept of Muktzeh called Muktzeh Machzor and Kiss. Something which is very, very expensive that you wouldn't use for anything else but what it's made for, then it's total Muktzeh also. Like if you have an expensive camera, okay, you're not going to use the camera to bang in a nail with it. Okay, you're not going to use the expensive camera to hold up something. You're not going to use it because it's too expensive. You're only going to use it for something that's made for tudo, and what it's made to do is forbidden. So that's completely Muktzeh. An expensive cell phone, iPhone, expensive cameras, a lot of documents. There's poshit expensive, huh?
Some people use your phone to pop up their story or to put it as a placeholder. Doesn't it depend on the person's usage of the item?
Not necessarily. That we'll get to when we learn Machzor and Kiss, if it's personal or it's general. Okay. Huh? What? No, credit card is different.